Good evening. M.M Out There, over there, everywhere, all over the place, and right now, right here. With the Apostle Leroy Scantlebury, he who contested the last two general elections in the constituency of St.Peter. Sir, always a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure being here with you, Mr. Morris.
Okay. I'll get right to the point. St.Peter has always been a Barbados Labour Party, constituency.
Yeah.
Except on few occasions. It has never been such an overwhelming Barbados Labour Party constituency. And what strikes me is that a person of the caliber of the present incumbent, Colin Jordan, could command such an overwhelming majority in an election contest. And I've spoken to you about this several times before, and I'm here to discuss the alteration of the electoral boundaries of St. Peter that has contributed to BLP victories in the past, and very much so on the last occasion. What is your opinion about what I just said?
Well, first of all, I want to correct you on St. Peter always being a Barbados Labour Party stronghold. If you recall the election between Owen Arthur and Sybil Leacock.
Well, yes, Ms. Leacock won by 1 or 2 votes, right. And she actually served 1 day in the House of Assembly.
Yes. So that tells you that St. Peter was a fair parish. It was a fair constituency.
And wasn't there one thing that KNR husbands actually okay
from the history that we've been able to see here in St. Peter. So St. Peter has always been a fair parish. Okay, it is after that election where the Democratic Labour Party candidate Sybil Leacock won that there was some legal matters that came about because of it. And then there was the reality of Owen Arthur then being the winner of the election.
Okay. 1 second. For those of you who may not recall, there was an election in 1984.
1984.
To replace the former incumbent, former Speaker of the House, Walter Clare Burgenheim, who had suffered a stroke and had eventually given up his seat.
That's right.
And there was an election held it was contested between Owen Arthur for the Barbados Labour Party.
That's right.
And Sybil Leacock for the Democratic Labour Party.
Yes.
Ms. Leacock defeated Mr. Arthur.
That's correct.
By a very slim majority. And this decision was contested by the leader of the Barbados Labour Party in the High Court, Mr. Tom Adams, who was the Prime Minister at that time.
Correct.
Subsequent to that, there was a flood in St. Peter. And by the time the by-election came around, Owen Arthur won comfortably. Many people thought that the flood aided him. And in that case, because the Barbados Labour Party were able to distribute and help those who were in need and who would have been influenced by such gratuity. You call it assistance, but they call it gratuity. And there were a few independent candidates in there. One, Everton Green, who was against the BLP in the election, but in the by-election had actually gone over to their side. So the very few votes that he would have gotten, which made a difference, would have actually been transferred to the Barbados Labour Party. And all in all, that's my opinion, made a difference in the second by-election.
Right. Well,
in that by-election, not the second one.
That's correct. So one of the things that a lot of people in St. Peter don't know is that St. Peter was always a fair parish. But after the subsequent victories by the Barbados Labour Party, they had a split in St. Peter. Now they claim that the split was based on the fact that the parish became overpopulated. And once you reach, I think it was about 9,000 registered electors, then there was a need to split the parish. Now, it was amazing that in that split of the parish, most of the areas of St. Peter that were strong Democratic Labour Party supporter areas got pushed over into the now St. James North. Even areas like Sherman's.
Well, I can tell Sherman's,
Okay.
that's where I'm from.
So we still have people who live in Rotundo, St. Peter, voting in St. Peter, and individuals in Ashton Hall and in the zone areas voting in St. James North. Okay? Now, in my opinion, when you're going to do a split, it has to be fair. Most of the Barbados Labour Party strongholds areas were not touched in that boundary selection.
But on the other hand, places like Roadview
Roadview,
and Ashton,
Ashton Hall, the zone,
Mine Quarter, and so on, which are Democratic
Labour Party
strongholds,
strongholds.
were moved
Right.
to St. James
St.
North,
James North.
which is a BLP stronghold,
And
and would not have made any difference over there.
exactly, and in many cases, places like that should have been in St. James North. Okay, so places like that should have been in St. James. If you have someone in Rotundo voting in St. Peter,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you have people in Ashton Hall voting in St. James North, then something went wrong there. I thought that the Democratic Labour Party would have done something about it when they came to power, but they did nothing. So one of the things that we have in St. Peter right now is we have approximately, and this is speaking under correction, at least 5,000 plus Barbados Labour Party supporters versus about 22 to 2,500 Democratic Labour Party supporters. So a Democratic Labour Party candidate can never win in St. Peter because there are not enough voters for them to win. It doesn't matter who the candidate is.
And the battlefield is not fair.
The battlefield is not fair. So a lot of our young people have come along not knowing about this election between Ornoth and Sibalika, not knowing about the changes in the boundary that made the parish unfair. It made St. Peter a completely Barbados Labour Party stronghold area. They did it purposefully, and I think something needs to be done about it.
Okay, so let us retract. What we've covered so far is that St. Peter was a fair constituency as far as elections are concerned.
That's correct.
After Ms. Sibalika won in 1984 and subsequently lost in a by-election a few weeks after, the Barbados Labour Party altered the boundaries,
That's correct.
shifting Democratic Labour Party strongholds into St. James North, which is a BLP stronghold, where they made no difference. They also did it in Sherman's, which although there weren't much voters there, but they did that as well.
Sherman's is now in St. Lucie.
Yeah, but you mentioned something that the constituency being split.
Yes.
So if the constituency was being split, why couldn't they have split it like how they did St. James?
Right.
Like a St. James North, South, Central.
Right.
Why couldn't they have a St. Peter North or St. Peter South?
Exactly.
Or something of that sort?
Exactly.
Instead of altering the boundaries in a dishonest and deceitful way, as far as I'm concerned, that's just my opinion. Why couldn't it be done that way?
Well, again, to make sure that in any election, and that's why, many individuals say, well, Apostle, you can't win in St. Peter. And I've always tried to say to those individuals, my running in St. Peter is not just about winning. It's about making a difference. It's about saying to the Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party that there are individuals in St. Peter who are fed up with both of them. There's a need for something new to come. Okay? So I think it was very unfair in terms of what has happened. Even since then, St. Peter has grown. There are more people living in St. Peter. There are more housing projects. There's housing projects in Maynards. There's a housing project in Maynards. There's a housing project in Fort Hill. There's a housing project in Boscobel. Housing project in French Village. Okay, so housing project in Breverton, both north and south. So there are more people who are living in St. Peter right now, and there hasn't been another split. So this is something that is very, very critical that we need to understand. Unlike St. George North, which is a parish where the people are to the level of political maturity, that if you do not serve properly, they will change you. So they're not B and D, is if you don't do the job, we will change you. St. Peter is not that kind of parish. And one of the things that...
St. Peter is a garrison parish.
Okay. And one of the things I would like for to happen in St. Peter is for more political maturity, especially among our young people.
Yes, because, especially you said among the young, because they come up under the control of the Barbados Labour Party.
I don't even think that they know. I don't even think they know the history of that by-election between Owen North and Sibiliko. I think that's something that has been, covered, and kind of shoved under the rug. But I think the time for individuals to understand, even to the point of having the Prime Minister as our parliamentary representative. I mean, look at St. Peter right now. Look at St. Peter after 15 years of the Barbados Labour Party, 10 years of the Democratic Labour Party. That's 25 years. That's 25 years. Look at St. Peter in 25 years. Look at Spikestown. Look at the surrounding environs in 25 years. And ask yourself what has been done to better St. Peter.
But talking about that, but this we're going to discuss this part here in part 2. The results of the common entrance exam. I saw someone sent to me the top 10 students. 90% on that list were from private schools, which doesn't say much about the government schools, And I noted that none were from the north, except for Good Shepherd,
Right.
and that's Raven St. James,
Right.
and that's a worrying statistic to me,
It is.
at least. But we'll discuss that later.
Yes, sir.
But right now we're on something else. But I just thought I'd give a preview of what some of the things we're going to go into in part 2.
This is, again, on the whole political arena, you always see that, and I'll tell you this, for the first time that I ran, I met with a gentleman who was part of the campaign for the Barbados Labour Party, and he said to me, because I've seen in subsequent elections that Mr. Arthur only has roughly about 3 campaign meetings in St. Peter, because he knows basically that he's going to win anyway. So when I met with this gentleman...
But I did notice that when he ran against Haines Ben the first time he was very busy.
When I came
in, he was very busy in St. Peter though.
Yeah, he was very busy. He had roughly about 7 or so.
And a lot of sport meetings, even in 6 men the night before election.
Exactly, which was unheard of.
Yeah.
So when I was talking with him, he said, listen, he says, Scanbury, I told him that we need to do our work because, you have a large family in St. Peter. You have the church community that may vote for you, and they said we have our work cut out for us. So it did say to the Barbados Labour Party, look, there is a challenge. There's the Barbados Labour Party, and there's always this thing about cutting votes. It's almost like they believe the votes belong to them anyway. The votes belong to the people.
Yes.
So that I was happy that it made the Barbados Labour Party do more than just coming and having 1 or 2 meetings because of the fact they know they're more.
That the result was a foregone conclusion.
Exactly.
Well, Apostle, we've come to the end of part 1.
Yes, sir.
We're going to continue the discussion in part 2, which shall be very shortly. Sir, always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
So that's the end of part 1. M.M Out here, over there, everywhere, all over the place. Gone to part 2.